So who had fun last night? Yeah? I'm really impressed, folks. I saw a lot of you guys sticking around for quite some time after the seminar was formally over. I kind of ran into little pockets of you guys all over the ship, which is even better. I saw one group right out here was it 8:30 last night still, so an hour and a half later, still going strong. So good job, guys. Very, very good job. As a reminder, the purpose, I mean, we have all these assistants and they've dedicated their time, they've agreed to stay on later in the evenings to help you guys out because we know how important those experiences are. The more you do these things, the better it is for you. Those of you who stuck around last night, did you find it useful doing that stuff? Yes? Good, because there'll be more of that tonight. Remember, it's not compulsory, but it's strongly recommended, right? Okay. Last night, just before we finished up, you did an exercise, did you not? And in the exercise, you basically just started talking and then stuff started coming out, and you're pretty pleased by that. Would that be fair to say? Yeah. There's a kind of a switch inside of your mind. And if you throw this switch, the chances of you recreating what you did last night go sky high. Not only that, but the very best of what you said last night will tend to become the normal things that you'll be saying once you throw that switch. So the very best of your performance last night will become standard once this little switch is thrown. Is anyone here interested in finding out what that switch is and how to switch it? Very good. I would like you to find a partner that you have not worked with yet. Off you go. Just find a partner you have not worked with yet. So, you all have a partner, right? Step 2, we're going to do this one step at a time. I would like you to turn your chair so you can comfortably look at your partner. No twisting around your chair, no turning your neck and cranking yourself. You will be in a position for quite some time. All right. So what you're going to do right now is we're going to just do 10 seconds of this just to kind of burn off any issues with it, and then we'll take the longer version. What I like to do right now is just look at your partner, make eye contact, and hold it for, say, 15 seconds. I'll let you know when the time is up. Okay, and just pause there. That's just like a warm-up act. How was that? Interesting? Do you notice that having someone stare at you for that length of time, it makes you feel unusual, does it not? Have you noticed this? That unusual feeling is something you really want as a hypnotist. That is how you want your subject to feel. When you have excessive attention on someone, what will happen is the normal thinking processes start shutting down again. The critical factor starts shutting down purely because they're going, oh, what's going, has anyone ever here been in love? Have you noticed that when you are in love, you don't normally make rational decisions all that well, right? The same is true of being afraid, is that correct? So what you're doing here is you're stimulating the same kind of things. It's kind of shutting down the higher reasoning processes to a little bit, it's damping them down, because you're amping up the nervousness. People don't like to be stared at in that way. And that's going to give us scope to do our hypnotic work and so on. Does that kind of make sense? It also does something to use a hypnotist, which we'll discuss after the full version of the exercise. However, before we do that, a quick chat on how you're feeling. A lot of you will probably notice that after you stare at someone for a little while, you'll want to look away, or your blinking reflex goes up, or you start tearing in the eyes, all these kind of reactions. Some people will start maybe want to laugh or giggle. These are all defense mechanisms, right? Because of this is a very personal thing. And I think Erickson said this, hypnosis is anything but a casual relationship. It's a very personal relationship, right? The whole idea of like, you know, you're the Wizard of Oz behind the big green curtain that no one actually gets to see, you just say things and things happen. That's really not how hypnosis really works. Maybe in a stage hypnosis where a different context is being created, but then they have to play the numbers. whereas we don't play the numbers, we play what's right in front of us. Does that make sense? So we need to get very personal with people. And I understand that our own stuff will come up in the meantime. So there's a very simple way of dealing with two potential issues. The first issue is, what if your own stuff about being personal with a relative stranger comes up? And number two, what if their stuff comes up for being stared at? Because if you recall yesterday, there is the kind of puppy dog eyes you do not want to be making, and not the kind of confrontational staring either. So how do we find that middle ground, which is going to be useful to us as hypnotists? This is what a lot of you already are familiar with, the idea of the H+. What I'm going to ask you to do is just close your eyes for a moment. Make sure you're facing your partner, but just close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to think of someone or something you love. By something, I mean something animate, a pet. Someone or something that you really love, that when you think about them, you get this maybe warm feeling inside. Someone you like to be with. Someone whose company you enjoy. Really think about that person. Until you start kind of wanting to smile a little bit, because it's pleasant to recall that. And to make this a little more powerful, I would like you to think of that person in the context where you get to give them some gift that will totally change their life, and something you really want to do for them. It's totally irrelevant whether or not you have the power to do that in the outside world. In here, in your imagination, you can do whatever you want. It could be magic, it could be cash, it could be just some really touching gift. Something that will really make their day, if not transform their life. And I want you to think about the moment where you are revealing that to them. How do you feel being able to do that for someone that you really love? And as best you can, I'd like you to hang on to that feeling. Let it kind of wash over you as you kind of release the scene, and slowly open your eyes, only to the extent you maintain that state of mind that you're in. And with your eyes open, I want you to make eye contact with the person in front of you and wish those things for them, as though they were a representation of your friend or loved one. I want you to wish the absolute very best for them as you look at them. It's as if you're looking right through them at some central part of them. That is untarnished and pretty amazing. Maintain that eye contact and those feelings inside, that intense desire for them to experience something amazing. It's as if only you wanted it enough for them, some gem inside of them would wake up and make it happen. And you may notice changes in their expression, their face, growing younger or older, distortions, and that's all fine. You can still see through all that into that small central piece where the magic can really happen. And your only job is to wait as you look at that. Wait expectantly for something amazing to happen. Know it. Feel it. And it's good to smile because you know something amazing is about to happen. Maintain this. Deepen this. Enjoy this. And memorize this state thoroughly. Because it's the single biggest secret to becoming a great hypnotist. It's the single biggest secret. No words are as important as this. No technique as reliable as this. No method as profound as this. And whenever you're ready, just allow yourself to break eye contact when you want. Let yourself settle down. Keep the state or let it drift. Whatever seems natural, just forget about it for a while. And then just turn this way. Can we have microphones around here, please?
I found it interesting that I would keep slipping out of the state that I was trying to attain, but then when I just sort of stop thinking about it.
There's those magic words again.
And let it sort of come out of me as just sort of a natural state in my environment. It worked a lot better. Yeah.
Everything we're doing here is something natural, something pretty fundamentally natural to human beings. We're just doing it in a very specific sequence in a specific way. Does that kind of make sense? It's something that we kind of drift into and drift out of in everyday situations. You all have friends, do you not? Yes? No? Yes. Am I in the friendless anonymous class? And you all had, shall we say, touching moments with those friends where you really had a heart-to-heart, right? Either because you had a problem or they had a problem, or maybe because you're both very happy and something shifted. In other words, the way you normally relate to that person went out the window for a while and you had a better connection, for want of a better word. Did you all experience something like that? What you just did here allows you to recreate that pretty much at will. I warned you, you don't want to be doing this with everyone. The stranger at the bus stop may really like you so much they'll follow you home. Camp outside your door, right? So you want to be careful that you use this in appropriate moments, appropriate context, and so on. But would it be fair to say that this is, being at the receiving end of this, it feels pretty good, doesn't it? It's kind of a little shocking, it's like uncomfortable at first, because someone's kind of looking at you, but it's also kind of nice to have that kind of acceptance, right? In the old literature of hypnosis, people talked a lot about hypnotic rapport and the hypnotic gaze, and you have to have your willpower, and I can dominate you, right? There were a lot of misconceptions, I think, in hypnosis at the time. But the truth of the matter is, there is something that switches inside of us when we step outside of normal social reality into something else. And this whole H plus sort of exercise allows us to step into that role. Does that make sense? So who would like to have an experience of H plus in action, how it transforms your hypnosis? Yes? With the same partner, turn around and face them a moment. So I'm going to describe what we're about to do first, so you have an idea of where we're going, and then we'll do it, okay? There can be 3 steps, 3 simple steps. In the first step, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, just like you did a moment ago, and get in touch with whatever way you connect to people with. Does that make sense? There's no need to do it just yet. In the second step, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, just like you did a moment ago, and look at the other person with that friendly H+, that intense desire to have them experience something positive. Does that make sense? In the third step, and I'm actually okay if some of you do not reach the third step at this point, because you will get there eventually. In the third step, I want you to start talking to them, like you did last night, about simple themes like comfort, relaxation, and learning, with power words and so on. One of you will be the hypnotist, the other person will just be listening at this point, and then we'll switch roles. In fact, you may as well just choose now. Between your partners, choose who's going to be the hypnotist. First person hands up is the hypnotist. Hand up. You're the hypnotist. Everyone know who the hypnotist is? Face this way when you've chosen the hypnotist in the group, and then we'll switch roles in a moment, okay? Now here's something really important. This is probably the most important part of the entire exercise. As I mentioned, you'll be talking to them hypnotically, in other words, using power words, the themes of comfort, relaxation, and learning, or similar things, right? That's easy so far, isn't it? Here's a bit that's going to be a little different. I want you to only speak as slowly as you can maintain the internal state that you generated in the first 2 steps. If at any point what you say or the way that you say it pulls you out of that experience, diminishes it, stop talking. If at any point what you are saying, or even the fact that you are speaking, pulls you out of that, stop talking, allow yourself to settle back down again, and only then begin again as slowly as you can maintain or enhance that state. Do you understand what I mean by that, yes? I will guide you through the first 2 steps, then I will be silent. And it will be up to you to start. If you have a false start, if you speak too loudly or a little too fast, say something that doesn't feel quite right, that's just fine. Because at that point, what do? That's 3 of you. What are the rest going to do? Stop. That's right. You'll stop, readjust, let the internal state begin first, and then start talking again. Does that make sense to everyone? So the first person's up as hypnotist, the other person just gets to enjoy the ride. You may as well practice the first 2 steps on your own too, and then just let go and enjoy the ride. Make sense? Go ahead and close your eyes. Find yourself settling down inside. And begin to think about someone you love, a person or a pet. Begin to get back in touch with those feelings. And, most important of all, your genuine desire for them to experience something transformational, something exceptional, something that will change their life. Really get in touch with that sensation. So that when you have it, as best you can, allow the idea of the person to recede in your mind whilst maintaining and enhancing the experience you have inside, that genuine feeling that you want to help someone, that you want to witness them transform in some way. When you have that, open your eyes only as slowly as you can maintain or enhance that feeling. Then, the hypnotist in your group can begin speaking at any time about comfort and learning, but once again only as slowly and lowly as it maintains this state. And for now, it's even okay if your partner doesn't quite hear everything you say. It's only an exercise after all. And slowly allow your voice to fade out. And go back to just looking. Slowly fade out your voice. And go back to just looking. Then both of you close your eyes. Close your eyes. And resume that pleasant state. Calm, quiet. As your roles change, the hypnotist is now the subject. The subject is now the hypnotist, recalling a special person in their life, someone you wish to transform. Someone you wish good things for. Someone you wish to give a gift that will change their life too. And only as slowly as you have that sensation, allow your eyes to open and look at the person in front of you, as though you're looking into the person in front of you. Really look as though you're seeing the essence of someone. And only as slowly as you can maintain this state or enhance it, begin to talk to them about comfort and learning. Alright, just allow your voice to fade out once again. Allow your voice to fade out and then close your eyes. Close your eyes and do nothing for a while. As you allow your unconscious mind to process the experiences you've just had, bring them inside and learn from them. Really learn to take the quality of H+ you've been experiencing and enhance it. And make it available to you as a hypnotist whenever and wherever you need it. So just rest there for a while and do nothing for a change. As your unconscious mind takes care of it all for you. And as soon as you're ready, allow yourself to drift back to normal conscious alertness, or at least a semblance of it. So we're ready to continue with our day. All right, folks, let's just stand up if you want to have... So how was that? Stand up and just come over with a mic, and then we'll come over to you in a second. Just wait a second, and we'll have one in a second here. Just give me a second. Go ahead.
Okay. I found it difficult to maintain a relaxed, hypnotic voice because I was getting too excited for the other person.
Perfect. And what did you end up doing?
I'm just getting into it. I was just getting all excited.
Beautiful. Allow me to ask a question, just for everyone in general. Did I at any point ask you to use a relaxed voice?
No.
The instruction that you did, it seems to me that you did it perfectly, was to speak only at the rate and pace that will maintain or enhance your internal experience. Did you do that? You did the right thing. Does that make sense? Would you just stand up with the microphone a second so people can hear you? Just stand up a second so everyone knows where you are.
What he did, though, it worked for me. With the language he was using, what he was doing, worked perfect.
I am not surprised. Because a lot of people think hypnosis is like, and now you're relaxing more, and boom, right? But we're conversational hypnotists here, are we not? How many times can you sit in a business meeting saying, and now you're getting your pen out, boom, right? We have to have enough range that we can fit into normal conversations. And admittedly, we're still on training wheels right now. So what you just discovered was perfect, because it shows you that you can be animated or calm. The point is that positive ambience that you're creating drives your language, drives the energy inside your own voice, so it matches the intention that you have, matches the meaning you're trying to communicate, which is of crucial importance. And then it's just a question of selecting the right way to feel about a particular situation, which is easy to do because you just did that. You just went to that place first. In one sense, it might be excitement. Another time, it might be just a calm sense. You know, little kid's frightened. You might just get the calm with them and sit with them for a while until they start calming down. Anyone a parent in the room? Isn't that pretty much what you do? You know, shh, no, it's okay. There. Right? Isn't that the classic thing parents do? Or someone gets frightened, you go and shake them and go, I'll give you something to be frightened about. It is a natural instinct, isn't it? So perfect. You did exactly the right thing. There's a microphone over here. Go ahead. Just stand up so everyone can see you.
It was interesting in both as hypnotist and subject. It wasn't an exchange that was back and forth. It was almost like an infinity symbol, that it was just rolling. So that was really interesting to observe. And then, as a subject, before he said anything, I was perfectly content that he would not have had to have said anything.
Right.
And the first word he spoke was welcome, and I would have bought beachfront property from him in Arizona. It was that quick and that profound.
I agree. Did anyone else have a similar experience to that? Yeah? You see, in hypnosis, and especially in conversational hypnosis, we have a tendency to make a real crucial mistake. And that is that we need to keep talking. talk, 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 sell, 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 sell. And when you ever been to a shop to buy something you knew you wanted, it's the price you want, it's the store you want, everything's right, you walk in and the salesman talks you right out of it, right? Because it won't shut up. The mind needs time to process. And again, what this does is, there are times when you feel like, did anyone ever notice this whilst you're doing the exercise at times, you wanted to say something but then it didn't sound right or it just didn't seem like it was the right time for it, so you just shut up for a little while? And then you started talking again. Did anyone notice yourself doing that? It's perfect. In hypnosis, especially when it comes to more formal hypnosis, you will probably be silent more than you're actually talking, which means the things that you're saying have a greater impact, because in those silences it gets absorbed more. And you find that balance point depending on the social context and, of course, the kind of things that you're talking about. Does that make sense to you guys? So, great. Do not be in a rush to do anything. This gentleman over here was next. Do you want to bring this gentleman over here? Carson, right here. Do you want to stand up so people can see you?
Well, before we started the exercise and I was the hypnotist, I had planned what I was going to say. And then I didn't say any of it.
Perfect.
And
I want to congratulate you on that.
Continued to roll. And again, I was surprised and delighted by what was coming out. And the tonality.
Isn't it easier this way?
Much easier, yeah. I'm using a much bigger part of me, I think, to do that. Yeah.
I think you guys are starting to get a sense of how important this is, right? I like to think of this as, we've got this lady over here and then we'll come over to you. I like to think of hypnosis as the H+ as being both a sword and a shield. People think of it as a sword because you do things to other people, and that's true. There is an element of that. Your capacity to influence increases. But it also becomes a shield in the sense it protects you from yourself. How many people here felt nervous during that induction? Anyone? Whilst you were doing it or before going into it? Right? How many people did not feel nervous during that induction? See, if you're doing the exercise, there's no room left for the nerves. Because the nerves only come when you're trying to think of something ahead of time. What's the right thing to say? You don't have to select the right thing. You've got to select the right state. Because the state will drive the things automatically. Once again, let's make the analogy of when you're talking to a friend. You have lots of friends that you feel comfortable around. Is that correct? This is yes, this is no. Do you have lots of friends you feel comfortable around? When you're in their company, you just know what to say because you feel comfortable around them and the right words come. There are individuals that you feel uncomfortable around. Is that correct? And would it be also correct to assume that with those people, you find it somewhat more difficult to know what to say? Is that correct? So, your ability to perform anything, to do anything, is not dependent on the person in front of you. It's dependent on the state inside of you. So if you're wanting to bring your nerves to the table, I suspect those of you who had still a bit of nervousness, which I understand, it's still part of the whole training game, you probably also found the exercise relatively difficult to do. Would that be fair to say? Those of you who had a little bit of nerves? Yeah? Those of you who didn't have nerves, who just surrendered to the whole experience and enjoyed it for what it was, did you have any difficulty finding words? No. Do you see clearly then how this is both this is a shield for yourself? It protects you from your own performance anxiety, right? Anyone here try and do an induction with a stranger right on the street, do a little bit of street hypnosis? Anyone have tried that so far? Is it a little nerve-wracking, right? Believe it or not, I feel exactly the same way. With strangers, even with people up here. The only thing I know to do, though, is that it doesn't faze me when I'm anxious, because I realize that I'm just in the wrong state. So then I look at someone, and it already begins to happen. And before I know it, I enter a different state. And then I just know what to do. So whether you feel stuck because the words won't come, or at other times it's easy, it's not that you can't do any of this. It has nothing to do with that. Every single person in this room has the capacity to be a greater hypnotist than I will ever be. Every single person. The only difference is the state, or in other words, the place you're coming from on the inside, because it drives everything. Does that make sense to you guys? Would it be fair to say that kind of matches the experience you've had so far? Yes? So I invite you to remember to do this little exercise as a warm-up before you engage in any other hypnotic activity. You may forget from time to time, and I will remind you. So you want to stand up? Is the microphone on? Just click it up.
I guess my question was, I felt almost too much emotion.
As a subject or the hypnotist?
As the hypnotist.
Okay.
I was holding back my tears because I wanted it so much for him. And I'm like,
I've done
okay,
that.
this is not professional, so I was like choking it down. And
Okay, so let me ask you this, and this is a great point. What's so unprofessional about having emotions?
But to cry in front of a client, or, I mean...
I've done it. I mean, admittedly, you don't necessarily want to be weeping. They go,
Right. No, but it was just...
right? There is a balance point, I admit,
Yeah.
right? But you will learn that. Remember, in here, you get to make all your mistakes. So I would personally encourage you, and it's up to you whether you do this or not, you're an adult now, I would encourage you to be a weeping willow for the next few days, because if instead of holding it back, you let it come through, you'll notice there's a balance point where you get to feel the power of the emotion without necessarily being overwhelmed by it yourself, and then your client will feel that power right along with you. That's what makes a great hypnotist in many ways.
Great.
Does that help?
That's perfect. Thank you.
There was another hand right behind you. Could you just pass to the gentleman? Oh, so it's fine. Carsten, would pick this one up.
When I was working with Rick, I felt as though I was more connected, as though it was one.
Yep. Did you all feel that as well? People who are doing the exercise without the kind of nervousness thing? That's the whole point of this. Again, this is a human thing. Human beings connect with human beings. That's kind of what we do. If someone has difficulty connecting with human beings, it's because somehow they're blocking themselves off some part of themselves. That's one of the reasons we go to see therapists or coaches or good friends to help us through those transitions. Now, when I first started learning hypnosis, I learned it from the clinical school of hypnosis, where you have to be correct, you wear your suit and tie, you must be dead from the neck down, right? Touching a person, oh no, that's bad. You touch another human being, that's just bad, right? And I believed it for a while, until when I started doing hypnotherapy myself, I thought the best way to learn it would be to actually go and see different hypnotherapists as a client, just to know what the experience is like. And my tutors, the one that were teaching me to be prim and proper and distant and all the rest of it, I fucking hated it. It was terrible. I sat in the chair and I couldn't wait to get out. And I was with other hypnotists, and here's the irony. I was with some hypnotists who were technically poor. In other words, they were not very capable. Their repertoire was very short, and their range outside of that was non-existent. And they were great, because they were good people, and I felt taken care of. Do you see what I mean? Hypnotherapy has to take care of another person as a human being. And if you're not treating that person as a human being, well then it's really difficult to get to the point or the place inside their mind where the problem's at, because that's the bit that's protected. They put armor around it because it hurts them there. Why would they let you in if they don't know that you'll take care of them there? I remember someone saying once, I think this is a great quote, the hypnotherapist's job is to be more powerful than the client's problem. Not more powerful than the client. You don't have to be overbearing and overpower them, but he has to believe that you are more powerful than their problem is. Why else would he be able to risk exposing it, unleashing the dragon, so to speak? Does that kind of make sense to you guys? And that very personal connection makes them feel like maybe this is the time that I can do this. And I know this, and you will all know this for a fact because you've experienced it, haven't you? Have you ever had, shall we say, difficult month, a difficult phase in your life? And at some point, you sat down with a friend, parent, loved one, whoever it was, and they gave you some pretty straight advice. But somehow because of the way they said it, the time they said it, it just really hit home. Didn't it? That's what you're doing. That, to me, is the essence of hypnotherapy. All the clever words and all the clever techniques and the visualizations and so on, they're great, they're fine. But the power from it comes from that human contact. That's where the power comes, from the emotion you experience, from the emotion they experience with you. That's the fuel that drives the whole engine. And you can have the most sophisticated space rocket, but if you have no fuel, it will never take off. And this is a mistake that I made for years, and I've seen people make for years. And I hope that, at least as a result of this exercise here, you will not be making that mistake. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? There's a question then, and we'll come to the back here. Can we have a mic over this gentleman? Just stand up so he can find you.
I had a similar experience to what someone over there was talking about how there was this big buildup of emotion. I felt not so much like I didn't want to sort of let that out so much as I felt like I got to a certain point where I wasn't allowing myself to experience that, and I sort of felt like there was some kind of block that was going on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure, it does. I mean, we're also human beings, and we all have our own issues. As therapists, they'll come right along with us. The key to being a good therapist is being able to minimize or sideline our own issues whilst we're doing our work. And with experience, it'll get easier, right? You'll know if it's interfering with the process. I mean, sometimes all you need is half that amount. So if there's a block at the top of it, no big deal, because you'll still get your work done, right? You don't need to be on super drive constantly. Sometimes you just switch it on a little bit, and it's enough. Other times you'll need a lot because some big stuff's happening. You'll have that sort of sliding range. With experience, you'll learn to modulate it a bit more. Does that make sense? I'll give an example of what I mean in the wrong sense. Again, this is the opposite side. It's good to be all personal and so on. But remember, hypnosis is anything but a casual relationship, right? So I know some therapists, they're not hypnotists, but they are more classical, like family therapy and stuff like that oriented. And they're the complete opposite. They will impose this huge emotional bubble on people wherever they go. So, you'll meet them at a party for the first time, they'll give you a big hug. Oh, it's wonderful to meet you. Oh, sit down, tell me, how is your relationship with your mother? It's like, who are you? And again, that is the opposite extreme, and it's also invasive, it's also inappropriate. And you can see that, right? So we need to know when we turn it on and when we turn it off. Turning it off is just as important as turning it on, because you have to be aware of the social context that you're in. If you're doing hypnotherapy, then it's probably okay to have more of that. If you're doing it in a more covert context, just helping a friend out over a drink or a meal, you may want to have a little less of that or a little more. It depends on the context. That's something I can't give you, but experience will give you. Especially experience with mistakes, of which I've made plenty. Does that make sense? This lady here, then we'll come back and then we'll come to you.
I found that being in this state made the language that both her and I used much more specific, because it conjured up very specific memories or images, and I just needed to talk about them.
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah, and that was much better and much kind of deeper experience than yesterday.
Beautiful. Bear that in mind. You will all at some point forget about this and get so wrapped up in the technique and the exercise and the language that you'll forget. And then when you come back to this, everything you will do is so much easier. So excellent. Bear that in mind. Can we have a microphone? There's two gentlemen in the back here, and then we'll come back to you again.
I started out as the subject, and some of the other people around us were closer to my ears than the hypnotist I was looking at. And I noticed the very best thing about the whole thing was that I started listening to everybody else in the room, and it was like being blessed by the whole entire room.
Well, you've just discovered is the essence of what's called a double induction.
So what I did is, it was so cool that when I became the hypnotist, then I said, pay attention to the other sounds around the room. And
wonderful.
Double and triple the power of it. So
absolutely.
It was really nice.
It's difficult to do a double induction on your own. You can't speak and throw your voice at the same time. But it's a really powerful thing. It's kind of like this huge overwhelm of positive things, right? So we'll have one more person in the back. We have this gentleman here, and then we'll have you two, and then we'll cut it short at that point. Otherwise, we'll be chatting all day and doing nothing, right? Go ahead.
I think I popped a preconception that I had that maybe I was a little choosy about the kinds of people that I would connect with or could connect with.
Right.
And this is really showing me that it can just happen with anybody.
It can happen with anyone.
Anyone.
Provided you're willing to see past whatever facade people present. You know what the persona means? It's actually the name that the Greeks gave to their masks when they were acting things out. It is literally the mask we present to the world. Who people are inside, sometimes they play this role so well they forget that they are anything other than that mask, right? Has its uses in some places, but in other places they forget that they are so much more than that. So it's good to be reminded of that from time to time. Thank you. So we have this lady here, and then actually this gentleman here was first, and then we'll come to you folks at the back, and then we'll be done.
So a couple quick things. I'm completely in love with my new best friend here. And that was fantastic. And I want to say, too, how grateful I am this is part of this work.
Thank you.
I have been interested in hypnosis for a while, but I've always resisted it. And I think it's because I didn't know this was a part of it, or could be, or I didn't see it somewhere.
Right.
And just about my experience, one thing I think the question will probably be answered throughout as the training goes, but when I was in the state with Walter, this is particularly as a hypnotist, I didn't want to say anything that sounded like hypnosis, because anything I would go and even try and get a sense of, it felt like it would take us out of that state. And so I either wanted to sit there and say nothing, or just kind of speak about what was happening. So I guess what I'm curious, I'm taking my own learning, is how do I keep that state while I'm still doing something that helps? And there was no problem he was bringing, so maybe that was part of it. But
and that you just answered your own question right there, right? Right now, you're wanting good things for them. We're going to focus on the area of learning and so on as a general theme, but you know, your instincts, your intuitions, once you've got this sort of connection going on, will guide what you say and how you say it. Now, once you have someone in front of you with a problem, someone who is suffering, all that desire to assist, to help, and transform locks in with their experience of suffering, and that will naturally start playing with it. Now, there are, of course, great understandings and skills that we will be uncovering as we go through to help with that process. But really, have you ever seen someone who's in pain and you just wished you could help them, you just didn't know what to do or say, right? With the skills you'll develop here, the answer will basically be, you start off with this whole H+, and then you start talking about anything. It could be about their pain, right? But in a way that they start easing into the conversation, and then it's almost like they will guide you to where you need to go, or something inside you guides you, some instinct, who knows, right? It requires experience. It is absolutely appropriate and useful from time to time to do something specifically for the skill thing. For example, you just play with a language, and you play with this, you do this technique as a structure to build internal reference points, structures, right? But when you're actually doing the work, you let go of all that, and you follow exactly the instinct that you had there. And it may be that whatever you had planned goes right out the window, but what comes out is better. And your litmus test is always going to be the client. You know, are things getting worse? Is nothing really happening? What's going on, right? That will move you forwards. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
With more experience, it'll make even better sense.
And then what does H+ stand for?
Oh yeah, sorry. This is I keep forgetting, because this came out of one of the first times we taught this. I was trying to illustrate to people what I do when I do hypnosis. I will switch my state. I will look at someone with a great intensity, and there's two fundamental desires that are inside my mind when I'm doing this. Number one, I want you to experience hypnosis and just how wonderful it feels. I know, because I'm addicted. I really want you to experience hypnosis. And I want you to experience something positive as a result of having had that experience. So that's the H+. I want you to experience hypnosis just for its own sake and just how wonderful it is as an altered state. And as a result of it, to have a really positive experience, preferably a life-altering experience. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? It's kind of cool, H+. The lady at the back.
Hi. The question
Hi.
I have is, you were talking about performance anxiety on the part of the hypnotherapist.
Yep.
Okay, but what couldn't you also be picking up on the other person's anxiety?
Absolutely. I do it all the time. I used to, as a child, as a teenager, my parents would throw like dinner parties, or cocktail parties where all these people would come in and they'd drink, and you'd be the perfect little son with a little glass and saying, "Can I have a drink, sir? And would you like one of these?" Right? And of course, you end up having to make conversation with people. And I had this the weirdest thing happen to me at the time, but I didn't understand it for many years. You see, with some people, I would be funny and smart and clever, and stuff would fly, and I'd think like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I can hang with the adults," right? With other people, though, I'd be like, "So where you from? Drink?" Right? And I'd feel all locked up, and I wouldn't know what to say. And I thought, what the heck's wrong with me? Why am I kind of this schizophrenic person like this and like that, and literally within minutes of each other? And it wasn't until years later when I started learning hypnosis and so on that I realized it wasn't me, it was the other person. The people who felt really comfortable inside their own skin made me feel comfortable, and so I knew what to say, just like you guys have been doing. The people who felt very nervous and anxious and had that tension inside made me feel like that, as a result of which I got all locked up and I didn't know what to say. So, as therapists, did I hear something over there? A little squawk saying, "Eagle!" So, as therapists, and this is important, folks, as therapists, you have to realize people will come burdened with their issues, and they'll probably sit down that chair with their issues. The best clients are the ones that come and don't kind of project all their issues around them and you can feel good and so on. But some come in so much pain that you just start feeling around them as well. Do not take those feelings seriously. They're an illusion. They're an illusion that the clients have bought into. And if you take them too seriously, then there's no way you can help them through it. What the H+ does is it allows you to not get sucked into that whole thing. So when someone's sitting there and it's like you're starting to feel anxious, you do your whole H+ thing, you wish good things for them with such an intensity that almost drowns out that other sensation. That's exactly what they need. They need someone who's got more confidence that they can overcome that problem than they do. Does that kind of make sense? But you do need to be very aware that there will be clients who will come in who will make you feel exactly that way. And there are certain issues that are more likely to bring that up than others. For example, if anyone wants to specialize in things like PTSD or rape victims or things like that, they will clearly come with more of that. If you're dealing with stop smoking or, exam anxiety, something like that, that's a very different ball game overall, and you're less likely to get those sort of people. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Does that help? And we had one last person, I promised, this gentleman over here. Would you just stand up so he can find you?
Hi, Igor.
Hello.
I don't have much to say about being a hypnotist other than I'm glad I didn't go first.
Okay.
As a subject, I couldn't really hear what my hypnotist was saying to me, so I watched. And I saw things I've never seen before. Every little tick of his face, every line, curve, became gross contortions. It just leaked emotion, and it was an amazing experience. I saw a lot of things that I didn't know people conveyed. I saw empathy, I saw fear, I saw self-loathing, I saw frustration, but he tried really hard. I wish I'd heard what he said.
Actually, in some respects, I honestly don't care what... Remember, I actually I talked about this in the induction. It doesn't matter if you actually hear your client and so on, because what you've just discovered is something also very important with the H+. There are certain hypnotists like Milton Erickson who are renowned for being able to read people just amazingly well, right? And you're 100% correct. People are constantly leaking information. Whatever's going on inside them is coming out, right? And that, by the way, is one of the reasons why hypnosis is a confidence game, right? If you're oh, I'm over exaggerating, but if go to trance, please. Right? It's an exaggerated version of it. But now, what if I'm sounding, pretty decent, but inside I still have this little tension, so that there are other mechanisms that are coming out that tell you that I'm not quite comfortable. You still start feeling uncomfortable around me because your unconscious mind is picking those things up. They're being sub-communicated. You still feel that something's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it. Let me ask you this. Have you ever met a person who, for some reason, you felt uneasy about, but you just couldn't put your finger on why? They were hitting all the right boxes. Has anyone here ever met a con man? Right? Did you notice that at the time, you felt there's something not quite right here, but you kind of overrode that because they seemed nice and pleasant enough, and then once you forgot about all that, that's when you kind of got sucker punched. Would that be fair to say that's kind of close to your experience? It's because they're still leaking all those signs. They know that they're about to take advantage of you to your detriment. And so that's part of what's kind of leaking out of them. But if we're not paying attention to our instincts in that way, and one of the things trance does for us is it puts aside our social expectations, so we just see what's there more and more, shall we say, then we can miss these things. And that's why it's also important for you to do H+ with a client, because what's going to communicate the right things? When you're feeling like the most absolutely important thing in the world for you is for this person here in front of you right now to have this amazing transformation, or when you're feeling like the most important thing in the world for you right now is to dig a big hole and bury yourself in it. Which one do you think is going to be more useful for your client to notice at the unconscious level, right? It's not really rocket science. It's not a difficult question to answer. And you just had the perfect experience to demonstrate that, so thank you for that. Does that kind of make sense? The words themselves become irrelevant. The words that you say, the things that you do are icing on the cake, folks. We will be spending a lot of time on the words. We'll be spending a lot of time on formulating the right structures and the right strategies to get through different things. But allow me to emphasize this right now. And please, if you want to write it down in big letters, feel free to write it down. If you want to tattoo it on your eyelids, that'd be very useful. Inside so you can read it, not the outside. The most important things that you do have nothing to do with what you say. The words are icing on the cake. They're important icing. They will think of it as like a fire hose. A fire hose pointed at a house does nothing. It's the water that extinguishes the flames, right? All the fire hose does is it channels the water to where it needs to go. What you have just discovered here, this is the water. This is what actually puts out the flames. All your words do is channel that, shall we say, emotional energy towards where it needs to go. If all you have is a fire hose, you can't put out fires. If all you have is water and no hose, your chances of putting out a fire are decent, if not great. If you have both, then you have reliability in what you're doing. Does that make sense to you guys? We'll be spending a lot of time figuring out how to make this fire hose and how to point it and where to point it and so on. But please never forget, it's not the hose that puts out the fire. It's the water. Does that help you guys? Okay, so let's do another quick exercise. Has everyone here had a pleasant hypnotic experience either in the last day or so or in the last lifetime or so? Yes? What I would like you to do is find a different partner, sit down with them just so you did a moment ago for this exercise, and then face this way so we can give you the next instructions. Off you go. So you have a partner. The very first thing, the first instinct you should have as a hypnotist, if you want to be a great hypnotist, in my opinion, this is just the way I do it, and all I can present to you is how I do it. You may come up with other ways, and you're more than welcome to. Right now I'm just going to train you in how I do things. Is that okay with you guys? Understanding that it's not the only way to do things, okay? So the very first thing I'm going to encourage you guys to do, as soon as you sit down with another person, is to begin to feel that sense of H+, begin to develop it, right? If you're sitting with someone going like, and then there's CSI tonight, and then we have Hunter, And then I think I watch the news. Yeah, I scare myself with the news a bit, I think. Right? If that's going inside your mind when you're sitting down with someone, you're wasting a lot of potential time to do work. Do you know what time? Do you know when when hypnotherapy begins with a client? Do you know what point you should start doing hypnosis? The moment they have contact with you. The moment they perceive you is when hypnosis begins. If you meet someone and go, come and sit over, yeah, all right, I'll be right back. Hey, right now, let's go sleep. Right? It can work. I've done it. It can work. But you've made life harder for yourself, right? The greatest, I've had a lot of people, we have literally hundreds of people write to us saying, oh, I've tried the instant induction, I've tried this and that, and it's all failed, right? And most usually, the most common error people make is they do everything wrong first, and then they start the induction. Of course, induction will fail. Does that make sense to you guys? So, as you're sitting with your partner and you're listening to me, it's a good opportunity for you to start getting the sense of this person in front of you is in so much trouble, but it's good. They're going to have such a good time, but they have no idea what's coming. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Now, specifically, I would like in your dyads, in your pairs, I'd like one of you to be the hypnotist again first. You'll both have a chance at this. Just put your hand up if you're the hypnotist. Right? So, we have a hypnotist. What I'd like you to do as a hypnotist, and this will take you 5 seconds, maybe 10, to get a little bit of background, is I want you to ask them about a pleasant trance experience. And here are the specifics that I want you to be curious about. What was the experience, right? Very importantly then, is just to set the context. When did it happen? And where? If you have these 3 things, you've got a good handle on the experience, right? The what is easy, because you're going to ask them for a what. The what is a pleasant trance experience they've had, either in the last day or the last lifetime or so, right? The when is very simply, when was it? Not rocket science, is it? And I'll say, oh, it was last Tuesday, or it was last night. The where is, again, not difficult. Well, where did it happen? Well, right outside these doors, in this chair, in that corner, lying at home in bed, listening to an audio tape, whichever it was. Does that make sense? If you're taking more than 30 seconds to get these 3 questions answered, you're putting extra stuff in there that you do not need, which will make your life more difficult later on. You're welcome to do it, but I will be moving on before you're finished. Does that make sense? So you literally want to have those 3 questions answered, and you need nothing else. When they give you those answers, if you have pen and paper ready, feel free to write them down. Or if you're happy to memorize it, and it's as simple, it's only 3 bits of information, then just keep it in your memory. But I want you to be aware of what they said, okay? You have 30 seconds to do that now. Off you go. Let me ask you a question here. Do you notice that even though you're asking 3 simple questions, your clients have a habit of just putting all this extra stuff around it, right? They want to tell someone to tell the whole story. Some actually just like, yeah, it was this, and they're done. Others want to read you their whole life novel. Well, you see, it started when I was born in New Mexico in 1902. My mother didn't buy me shoes straight away. It's like, what the heck, what's going on here? And this is good to know because clients will do exactly the same thing. And one of the key skills you have as a therapist is you have to be able to just cut through all this life stuff that's going on and cut to the chase, cut to what's actually useful to you as a therapist to know to actually get the work done. Does that make sense? On occasion, it's important to the client. The client needs to just vent and just talk, which could be the therapy itself. But you haven't done any hypnotherapy at that point, right? With most clients, it will be quite appropriate to politely cut them off and focus only on those things that you need to know about in order to get the work done. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you all have a sense of what, when, and where that your client had? Does anyone miss those steps? One person? Okay. Don't worry, you have another chance. We're going to do this again. So you're going to pretend that you haven't seen the client yet. I want to ask you to ask the same questions again. Only this time, I want you to start with your H+. If you want to just close your eyes for a moment, do that. I want you to start with your H+. and then ask your questions as though they were hypnotic induction. And there's noticeable answers you get this time. Does this make sense to everyone? Off you go. So how did I go this time? Did you notice how their answers were a little different this time around? Would that be fair to say? Can we have mics ready, folks, please? Just stand up if you want to share. What did you notice that was different about how they answered the question the second time? Just stand up if you notice something there. Just do you want to step away from the speaker again? Knowing how exciting it gets.
I found that it was more personal.
You found that it was more personal. Anyone else find that sort of thing? Right? So as a subject, did you notice how you were more willing to tell them things? You were more happy to tell them about things, more intimate detail, shall we say, than the first time around. Would that be correct? Yes, overall? Good. That's one of the reasons you want to start with those whole H+ thing ahead of time, right? So now we're going to do the next step. I want you to start again from scratch as though you haven't done any of this yet, right? You're going to ask the same 3 questions again with the H+, only this time you notice there are 3 units of information here, right? What, when, and where. So it might say, let's say the what is, well, I was hypnotized by my friend Joe. That's a what, isn't it? When was it? Last week. Where was it? At Joe's house. 3 bits of information. As each individual piece of information comes out, I want you to wallow in it. If it's, let's examine, what was it? Well, my friend Joe was hypnotizing me at his house. He's already given me 2 bits of information there. So it's your friend Joe. Your friend Joe is hypnotizing you in his house. So with your friend Joe, he's hypnotizing you in his house. And when was this? Oh, last Tuesday. So it's last Tuesday. You're with your friend Joe, and he hypnotizes you in your house. Is that what happened? So you see how it's semi-conversational, but you're putting the whole trance engine that you've been practicing this morning into it. Does that make sense to you guys? A quick question over here. Do you want to stand up with the mic?
Actually, Jules here couldn't help but notice as well that you're speaking in present tense as well.
Exactly. That's a good thing you spotted. So, we'll come on to that, don't worry. Any questions? Oh, one for the lady in the back here, please. Do you want to stand up so we can get your mic?
It's a simple question, but when you say hypnotic experience, does it have to be somebody else hypnotizing you, or you can hypnotize yourself? So, would that count? Yeah, if she asks me, yes, I can hypnotize myself. So, okay.
Try it and find out. Everyone ready? You have 1 minute because you're going to be wallowing in it for a while. Off you go. So again, stand up, just put your hand up if you want a mic or something. How was that as an experience compared to the first one? Especially you as a subject. What did you notice happening? Anything? So for this gentleman over here, just stand up a second so we can get your mic. A mic, anyone? There we go.
What I found really interesting was that as he was speaking, I found myself going back into that prior experience.
Beautiful. Did anyone else notice that too? As your hypnotist wallows in this moment of glory for you, you find yourself kind of being sucked into the memory more and more and starting to experience it a bit more. Anyone else find that happening? Yeah? What's going on here? Where attention goes, energy flows. So, you've asked your 3 questions, and you start echoing, I'll use this word here, you start echoing what they're saying. Is that correct? You start echoing it, which reinforces it. The next step is exactly what you spotted over here. Some of you already went ahead and did this, which is great. You're going to change your language to the present tense. How many of you already did that? Right? Beautiful. That's easy to do, isn't it? You just start off, you were with your friend Joe, you were in his house, you were doing this, and then just over a little bit of time, you just start slipping in, so you are at your friend's house. It is Tuesday. It's a real simple switch to make, isn't it? Right? Would you like to have a little extra thing you can do here? Yes. Do you remember the blackjack rule, 21 repetitions? You don't necessarily have to do 21 repetitions of these 3 bits of information, but you do want to be really emphasizing it 3, 4, 5 times, because together they'll add up to about 20 because you have 3 pieces there. Does that kind of make sense? Once you've added 3, 4, or 5 of these things, you ask the magic question. Right? Because right now he's only giving you like the overall picture. Right? You're at your friend's house, he's hypnotizing you on Tuesday. That's kind of the scene. Could you make a movie of that yet? Not really. You don't know at what point he started. You know what they were sitting in. You don't know what they were saying. You don't know what his experience was. Right? So just ask them. So you're at Joe's house. It's Tuesday. You're at Joe's house. And he's hypnotizing you. Right? Now the first question in this context might be, how does he begin? Right? So what happens next question may just be a how does he begin question because it fits the context more. You understand what I mean by that, right? So how does it begin? Well, he gets me to close my eyes in the chair. So what do you do now? Right back to the echo again. So you're in the chair and you close your eyes. You're in Joe's house, sitting in that chair, and you close your eyes. What happens next? Do you see how we're still doing that same wallowing, that same echoing, that same cycling? And then we get another little bit of information. What happens next? And what happens next? And what happens next? Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Is that easy to do? I'd like you to get maybe 2 or 3 layers of what happens next, making sure you do not rush any point. You want to wallow at each point and observe what the reaction of your client is whilst you're doing that. Any questions on that? Can we have a microphone over here just so we can hear properly? You know, stand up so we can get the mic to you here.
Why is the reason to change past to present? I don't know why.
It's a great question. Anyone else? I promise to answer it. If you want to write it on the question wall, you will get an answer, just not yet. Anyone else? Okay, good. So take a little bit longer and just do 2 or 3 cycles of that. Off you go. Okay, folks. How many of you remember to do the H+ and maintain that internal state? How many of you forgot? And just got animated and got, excited about the story and so on, right? Those of you who got animated and got excited by the story and so on, did you notice any of the trance responses occur in the client? Some? Those of you who got the H+ and took your time to speak to them in the same rhythm that you felt like inside, did you see the trance experiences there? Yeah? So remember, you're going first. If you want to have the kind of trance where someone's excited, great. Get excited with them. If you want the kind of trance where they're calm, relaxed, focused inside, then you need to go there first. Your H+ demonstrates to them what they want. And the whole point of this whole echoing and wallowing thing is to give them that, shall we say, emotional atmosphere within which to do it. Does that make sense? If I said to you, remember the trance you were in, that's it, a real pleasant trance, something really relaxing. Really relaxing, really relaxing. That's it, really relaxing now, really relaxing. It'll work with some people. But if I go first and ask you to think of a relaxing trance, something really relaxing, something in which you were really relaxed. I mean really relaxed. A real trance you experienced. And you're there in that place. Really relaxed. And it happened at a certain time, did it not? So So you're there, feeling really relaxed. Are you not? Really relaxed place. And you're there in that really relaxed place. Really relaxing. What happens next? Really, what's relaxing about it? Do you understand the difference? I can feel it because I've broken my own state here. Now, it's fine to do that because if I want to find somewhere where you're really excited or really energized or enthusiastic, I'm not going to start going and finding a place where you're really enthusiastic, really happy, full of energy. We need to make sure that what we sub-communicate matches the experience that we are suggesting. Does that make sense to everyone? A quick question over here. Can you just stand up so we can get the mic to you?
So it seems as though I understand what you're saying, but just I want to take half a step backwards when you sort of started describing how people were sometimes getting really excited and getting into what their subject was saying. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure if you implied that the echoing and the wallowing in what they're saying can't be done when you are getting excited and getting into what they're saying.
Anything can be done. It's just a question of what experience are you trying to induce.
Right. So for an exciting experience, would you say?
For an exciting experience is exactly right. That's what you want to be doing. But what was we asked your clients or your partners to do? Think of a pleasant trance experience.
Right.
And they tend to be, unless you like, if they are, and it's true, if you're skydiving or, surfing with sharks or whatever crazy things you like to do, those are also altered states, right? They could be called trance experiences because they take you out of normal reality. And those are absolutely appropriate. For the moment, we want to keep it simple. The kind of trance experiences you can recognize because you spend at least a day in them. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? So I want you to have the range of going both directions, and rest assured we'll be going in that direction too.
Okay, so I should hold my question for later.
Yeah, you can write it down as well, and I'll make sure I'll answer it. It's just right now we're trying to make sure we have every step covered. Make sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Now let me ask you another question. Do you notice that what happens next is not always the right question to ask, the appropriate question? Because sometimes there's no next yet because you didn't have any scene. You may have to ask what happens first, right? Sometimes they'll skip right to the end of something. So you have what happens first and what happens last, but there's obviously stuff missing in the middle, right? So what do you ask then? Yeah, before this ending piece happened, what happened then? Or between the time that this happened and that happened, what happened there? I mean, this is not rocket science, is it? If your friend or child comes home garbling a story at the end, it's like, and then Johnny did it. Whoa, Johnny did what? Where? With whom? Why? With what? Right? So you'll do the same thing with people. The key here is, do not let them rush on. Do you notice how some people just give you like 15 statements at a time, right? Anyone have that happen? You ask, so when was it? Well, there was a time when I was this and I was there and I was doing these things and then that, and you're going like, what was it again? The key is to select a short phrase that encapsulates what they're talking about. Their phrase, not yours. You're going to literally parrot it, but in this more mindful sort of way, and then repeat it at them. Give me an example of what I mean by that. Someone? Anyone? You had a hypnotist, or you had a subject right next to you, so just tell me what they said. It's real easy for you. So what kind of things did your client say at any point in this? In the back here, can we just have a microphone for this gentleman? Just stand up so we can get the mic to you.
My client was saying that he had a deep, relaxing experience where
Excellent.
he went inside of himself.
Now just pause that. Notice how you've got two different things there. If you let him run on for too long, who's running the conversation? You or the client? So you want to make sure you can parcel it down to little sound bites of experience. In this case, there's two of them. So remind me again what it was?
A deep, relaxing experience.
So you had a deeply relaxing experience, right?
That's right.
A deeply relaxing experience.
He did.
What happened with that deeply relaxing experience?
He was sitting
So he's sitting.
He's sitting with his hypnotist.
So he's sitting with his hypnotist.
That's right.
Sitting with his hypnotist.
And
having a deeply relaxing experience.
Yeah.
How did it come about?
It came about with the hypnotist looking into his eyes.
Oh, so he's sitting with his hypnotist.
Mm-hmm.
The hypnotist is looking into his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? Do you see what I'm doing here? Do you see how I'm slowing him down? I'm not allowing him to give too much information so that I can use that information to its maximum potential. You may not even need to you don't even get the whole story. You just see him dropping into it. Do you want to have a quick demonstration of this? Can I have a volunteer, please? Coming up. Give him a round of applause, folks. Can I have Carson? Can you just hold the mic for him? Just have a seat here. Just hold the mic up so he can hear. No, don't worry, you won't be able to hold things for very long. You may want to stand up on the stage so you can get it nice and close to him. So how are you doing, Michael?
Doing very well, thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear him in the back? Try that again.
Doing very well, thank you.
Good, so then nice and close, right? Ignore the man in the back. It's like a Wizard of Oz thing. So did you have a pleasant trance experience sometime in, I don't know, last day, last month, last year,
yes.
Last lifetime? When did that happen?
About a month ago.
So about a month ago. And what happened?
I was working with a friend on the magnetic hands induction.
So you're with a friend, and you're working with this friend on the magnetic hands induction, right?
Correct.
Where was this?
It was, where was it? It was at his place.
So it's his place. So you're at your friend's place, and you're working with your friend on the magnetic hands induction. Is that correct?
Correct.
So how did you begin?
We sat across from each other.
So you sat across from each other. So your friend's there, you're sitting across from your friend, and you're about to practice the magnetic hands induction. Is that right?
Correct.
And what happens next?
I asked him to put his hands up a few inches apart.
So you asked him to put his hands up. So you asked your friend to put his hands up. Is that right?
Right.
And you're the one who experienced the trance in this?
Afterward.
Oh, afterwards. So when we get to that point, how did you know the trance was beginning for you? There you go. So when did that begin?
When the trance for me began, when the trance for him began.
So when the trance for him began, what was happening then? There you go. That's right. And you're there with your friend. And there's that trance. You might as well experience it. That's right. And did you enjoy that trance?
Yes.
And how vivid was it?
Very.
Very vivid. Did it surprise you?
No.
But it was vivid, wasn't it?
Yes.
So your friend's there. And he's in trance now, isn't he?
Yes.
And what's happening to you?
I'm reflecting that trance.
You're reflecting that trance. Reflecting that trance. Go ahead and close your eyes and enjoy reflecting that trance all over again. And learn from it. That's right. Discover that you can have all manner of trances available to you for your own improvement and for your learning as a hypnotist. Reflecting that trance. As you reflect on the capacity you have to be a great hypnotist now. And you can enjoy that, can you not? That's right. So notice how quickly we can get to that point. And once we have him, did you all notice when he hit the memory and he entered it, right? Do you notice how there's a lot of nervousness in front? Of course, he's in front of 160 people. There'll be nervousness there. But you also notice that that's a phone call for me, isn't it? Oh, it's a phone call. Please, can I have the phone? So close. Did you also notice how when we had extraneous information, the bits where he starts the induction himself as a hypnotist, it surprised me, didn't know that's going to happen, right? And when we skipped the point where the actual trance experience was starting from him, did you notice a shift occurring at that point? Yes? Did you see a shift from the more nervous talking normally about it to a more glazed over? Bits of that were occurring right at the start already, but the biggest shift happened at that point. And your guess is why? He was re-experiencing it. In hypnosis, it's called revivification. Does that make sense? Once we had that, we just ran a few loops of that and then let him stay in it for a while. I hijacked the trance, I borrowed it, in this case, for a learning experience. Does that make sense? Is that really easy to do? It's really what you've been doing all along, isn't it? The essence is the H+. Notice how I didn't allow him to run on with too much. I just started reflecting back, which is a good word for it, exactly what he was saying over and over again with that more hypnotic tonality, and then letting him sit in it once he got there. Easy? So Michael, whenever you're ready, just bring yourself back. Did you enjoy that? Yes. Wasn't that something?
Absolutely.
Were you the hypnotist or the subject in this last exercise?
The hypnotist.
Great. You'll know exactly how to do it then, won't you?
Exactly.
Give him a nice round of applause, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, folks, you have 4 minutes to do exactly that with your partners. Please choose a trance experience for now. If they can't remember a trance experience, then a calm, relaxed time where we're focused, reading books and like that. We don't want the exciting ones yet. Off you go. All right, folks, was that easy to do? Yes. Do you notice how it's a lot easier to do when you interrupt them long enough to feed back just a small portion of the experience at a time? Would that be fair to say? Do you also notice how it's easier when you kind of wallow it, you're echoing those experiences back over and over and over again? Sometimes it just takes one idea, and that's the one that's it. That's the one that takes them there and keeps them there. Up here, of course, that was the idea of reflecting back to their client, right? You notice how when he said that, there was a significant shift in him, and by reflecting that bit back, really my job was done. Is that correct? Is that what your experience has been as well? Okay. So we're going to now switch roles. The person who's the hypnotist will be the client will be the hypnotist, and so on, right? We're going to do this in stages as well so you can build up in towards it. So the first thing you want to do is in 20 seconds only, get the first 3 questions, what, when, and where. Then as soon as you've done that, please face the front so we can continue. The sooner you do this, the longer you'll have later on to do the actual induction, which is the fun bit. Off you go. Okay, how many of you got done in that time, or how many did not? Everyone's hand should be up at this point, because you either got done or you didn't. Exactly, confusion, right? Okay, but it's easy to ask those 3 questions, right? Now, as a client, the people who are clients before, now the hypnotists, you'll notice once again that even knowing about the fact that they're likely to rant on about things makes it very different to actually be able to control them whilst they are doing that. Is that correct? Yeah? So, get used to interrupting them. Maybe touch them on the shoulder or just say a little, let's just pause there. Let me just check what you're saying. It's here. This is happening at this time. Is that correct? Yes. Done. Easy so far? Next step, I want you to start again, ask the same questions. This time, get into your H+, and ask the questions as though they were an induction. Then, when they give you an answer, whatever the answer is, take that first portion. If they want to give you 3 things, cut them short before that, and just take that first portion, echo it back, wallow in it a little bit, and then ask, and what else is happening? And then you wallow in that, and then what else is happening, and so on. Does that make sense to you guys? So you're just going to wallow in those little bits and pieces until you have the same picture that I talked about earlier on, just now, only you don't need any more information. It's just you are echoing those things back over and over again. You'll have 1 minute to do that, and we'll come back here and we'll do the full version. Off you go. Was that easier to do? Right? As you start going there first, as you start using the H+, and pausing your client, taking control of your client long enough to run the interaction, you get a better result, do you not? So we're going to do the whole thing one more time. This time, I want you to drill down into the experience more, like you're making a movie and you're walking through the scene of that movie. Imagine that they're an actor and you're getting them to describe what they'll be doing up on the stage and so on. Does that kind of make sense? So you'll be using what happens next, what happened first, what happened between these things, what happened before that, after that. These kind of ideas to get that sequence smoothly so you can present that sequence, at the end of which, whatever was the strongest part of the cycle, you just repeat that, tell them to close their eyes and enjoy that experience. Simple as that. Easy? Yes? No? Yes? Huh? All right, off you go. How's that? Was that good? Do you feel the sense of the H plus growing as you're getting into this whole thing? Yes? It's getting easier to do? Excellent. So we're about to have a 15-minute break so you can go off the bathroom, get some fresh air, whatever it is. Again, to make sure that we keep on track, please come back early. It is now, what time is it now? 10 past 11. We'll start at 25 past according to this watch. Please try and be here at 20 past so that we can really get started early. If you see someone straggling me on your way back, just give them a nudge so that they can come back. We will start at 25 past on the dot, so I don't want to miss anything.